we're in Procreate now. Now you can follow along with, pencil and paper or any type of app you like. We're going to start wireframing this screen that we have, and we need to sort of think about what it is that we want to be adding to the screen in terms of functionality. I already know that I'll be navigating to this screen from the front end, so I need some sort of way of knowing what screen I'm on. So obviously we need a heading or a title. So let's do daily task, and then we'll need a way of sort of tracking how long's left before these tasks refresh. So with some sort of counter, so like 9 days, 24 hours. Let's just create the frame for our UI. Now, we don't need to be too precious at all about the layouts or like how precise the lines are. We don't really care about that. What we care about is getting the content down as quickly as possible. So my heading's sorted. I know what's going on there. I also know that I need a way to back out of this screen. So I'm going to just quickly sketch in a button here. So this would be like close. You could also use a one of these types of buttons if you wanted to. Stand to your personal preference. I'm just trying to think what I've already got in the game. And yeah, you can always iterate on it in the future if you wanted to. So we've got a way to get in. The way to get in is a button that's on the front end. That triggers this full screen view. Then we've got a way to get back out. Okay, now what we need is do this on a new layer actually. We need a task item. Yeah, I need an image to show, so like the type of task it is, just so there's a little bit of visual interest. This could be anything like a view of a tile or a dungeon room or something like that, or a character. I also know that I need a task item name or description, so I'll just write that down. Task description. Okay, I'm not too bothered about any of the typography rules around this or any of the layouts as such. I also know I want to show an image of the reward they're receiving. So this would be a coin or some sort of like gem or something like that, or maybe like a cosmetic. And then we need to keep track of how many they're getting. So that's essentially what I think I'm going to need as a basis, but we also need a way to differentiate between claimable states, sort of inactive states and stuff like that. So I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to quickly do a rectangle box. Doesn't really matter too much, and within that I know that I want a claimable string. So this is the bit that sort of sits over the top. It sits somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where it sits at the moment, but that's sort of what I'm thinking. So this is like a call to action that appears whenever you've unlocked. I'm sort of thinking that it would be good to have like a visual progress bar here as well. So I'm going to take this bit here, I'm just going to push that over there, and then underneath I'm going to put a little progress bar. So that'll be whatever it is, and the player needs a way of knowing like how far they are along that progression. So some sort of like text, like 1 of 2, so they're halfway. And I think that's pretty much that. So I'll duplicate this like a few times maybe. And this is essentially what we're going to be doing in, not only are we doing it in Figma, but we'll be doing it in Unity as well. So we'll, within Figma, we'll create what's called a component, which is like a reusable object within Figma, and it allows you to sort of create different sort of instances of it, or like just have one master component that has global effects throughout every instance of it. So it's really interesting, and it's very similar for Unity as well. So yeah, duplicate this. One thing we'll need to figure out is what happens around this section, you know, where your items sort of scroll up the screen. I'm not usually like that into adding scroll bars and stuff where I don't need them. So I'm probably not going to do like this type of thing where you have your sort of scroll bar that sort of shows you how far on your list you are. So I'll remove that. But I quite like, especially on mobile, doing this type of thing where the item sort of fades out behind behind whatever's on top of it. So in this case it is a button, and that's called like, I call it partial disclosure, and it's something that Apple recommend as well in their user interface guidelines. So yeah, it's something to try. And you know, when people are scrolling on their phone, you know, I can't actually remember, I've looked at it so much, but like on Instagram and stuff like that, I can't remember if they show you progress bars anymore or anything, or if the content, you know, sort of, you just instinctively know that it's going to scroll off the screen. But that's sort of the idea here. So just for a bit of clarity for us, so this is going to be that is a claim CTA, and I'm sort of thinking that that's going to have like a little pulse on it or something, so like some sort of tweening. Yeah, so tweening. The progress will fill up, it will do its thing. This will have in an disabled state, I guess, inactive state. But I'm not entirely sure right now how I want that to look, but I'll know that, you know, whilst you're making progress towards it, you'll you'll sort of like see it in one state. When you've unlocked it, you'll see it in that state. Maybe it's just like this. And in a claim, when you've claimed it, we'll need to do a similar thing, or do a thing like, so if I see if I can select this guy here, just like a way of sort of fading it out or something, and then putting text over the top of it that says claimed. It's kind of nice to see your progress, so like you can go through, and eventually these will clear, but I'll need to talk to Brad, who's the programmer on the game, about how we want to sort of handle that. One thing that's just occurred to me, in this daily task screen, we need a way to sort of just disclose that it's gonna like refresh. So it says this, but it doesn't really say anything as such, so we might want to put like refresh in, like that type of thing. See how I feel when I get around to it, but essentially, like, this is the bare bones of what we want. And within Procreate at this point in time, this is exactly what we need. Like early on, we want to be taking a look at this and, you know, just sketching it. It took a couple of minutes just to sort of do it and talk through it. And now we need to transfer it over to Figma. So let's just imagine like I did this, and then the stakeholder said, yeah, that looks fine. The coders said, yeah, that looks fine. They could probably work from this, to be honest, if they wanted to go ahead and set things up. And whilst they're doing that, I could open this up in Figma and, you know, do the designery art side of thing. Hopefully you're following along and you've got the same sort of setup. I've got a daily tasks frame here that I've added, and I've gone for a canvas dimension of 360 by 640. I like using this for various reasons, but it's kind of like a multiple of, or a perfect multiple of 1920 by 1080, but it just allows you to have like a smaller canvas on screen. So that's something to think about. Because when we go into Unity later on, we're going to be sort of working with a 1080 by 1920 type of thing. So which is like standard sort of like, you know, HD. yeah, let's go for a task, a daily task. Yeah, and that's the text field that we've just added, so you can do that with a T, or you can find it along here. And then I'm not really bothered about the text at this point, what font it is or anything like that. I'm just going to get it in place, get my Whitebox or wireframe from here into there. I'm going to refresh is in. So I added this, as you remember earlier on, but it's sort of, I don't know if like sometimes like you can over explain stuff with UI, and I don't know if it's always necessary. And also like the whole refreshes in type of thing with, you know, this going on always looks a little bit sort of like developer-y, not very graphic designery, you know. But we'll, yeah, go roll with it anyway. I'm just going to duplicate this, and so this would be 9 days, do capitals I guess, 24 hours, and that's looking fine. Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger places. So that's the main top section. At this point you're probably thinking, man, do I really follow this guy for UI advice when he's just doing this? But honestly, like we don't care what's going on right now. We're going to create the object here. So this is the task item. So we're sort of eyeballing roughly sort of where we want to be. Make sure you've got your snap to pixel grid on. That's sort of quite helpful. So we'll duplicate this guy here. I'm just going to bring it to the front. I'm pretty sure that hotkey's changed since, but anyway. We'll create another square or rectangle. I'm going to bring that to the front if it wasn't already. I'm going to color it in white just so we can see it. I'm just going to place that there. Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V to duplicate it that way if you wanted to. I'm going to drop that down. Okay, cool. So we've got a progress bar. That's fine. It's not going to win any awards, but yeah, it's fine for what we need. So let's just shrink things up a little bit because we've got to fit a little bit more content in there. Going to select a. So we could add an image, but right now we don't really care what we're adding specifically. So let's just continue to whitebox this as we sort of know we should. So let's do something a little bit more interesting with this. I'm just going to round that off because at least in the game that we're working on, we're only showing currency here. The next thing will be to daily task description. Okay, cool. That looks gorgeous, of course. And we're going to need some sort of counter at the bottom. So this would be the 999 type of thing there. But let's just duplicate this. Okay, it looks fine. I'm going to duplicate that by you know, pressing Alt and sort of dragging. Then we'll do claimable. Why not? I'm going to colorize that. It might come up there in this video. Yeah. The funny thing is, like, I've used like a default green here, but it would work perfectly for the game we're making, because like it's like kind of like a little nod to like 90s sort of style and stuff like that, and it's yeah, those greens, you know, come up a lot, you know, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like packaging art and stuff. It's always there. In the real world, like in the present world, you probably would never use this color, but I might actually use that color. So we'll have to see if it survives the art pass that we'll do next. Right, so I'm going to create a button. So this would be, yeah, a nice rounded button, something like that maybe. And, well, that's too much art. Do you think that's too much art already? putting a little bit of a radius on that, probably. And we'll do close. Okay, cool. So already we have pretty much what we need. The only other thing that is missing that I can see is the claimed state. So it's more likely that I'm going to do something like, so I'll take this, cover that over everything completely, and I'm going to put, like, I'm going to rotate this around, I'm going to put claimed, like that, something like that. And this color would actually become, you know, maybe black with semi-transparency to it, and the text kind of like imagine it like a stamp or something. I'm gonna put that to one side for now, but that's how I probably do it in Unity, is like have this separate object which sort of sits over the top and you toggle it on and off based on the state of the task, which is essentially what this is. It just doesn't cover it, so you could have a bit of fun with that, really. Okay, cool. And yeah, so that's the basic wireframes that we need. I don't think I've missed anything. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to sort of like clean this up, make all of these elements here a component within Figma, and we're going to add this as well. And then we're going to look at using components and variants to sort of like have different sort of visible states and stuff like that for the wireframes. We're going to just clean this up a little bit. We've got all this stuff in the hierarchy here or in the layers, and it's all a bit all over the place, not that great. We don't really need our wireframe anymore, but I'll just leave it there for now. So let's zoom into this and let's start to sort of make sense of what we've got going on, just tidying that up a little bit. So I'm going to group that together, and that can become the claimable label. Let's call it a label. So that's going to be its own thing. That's good. We've got oh, that's the button, so we'll come back to that in a sec. We've got the task item container, which is the thing holding everything. When we get into Unity, that would be the panel, that would be a container. We've got the description, so we need to format this text a little bit just so it's a bit tidier. So it won't be too precious right now, but just shrinking it down a bit. So we've got our progress fill, then we've got our progress container. Gonna group these together as well. Progress bar. Okay, that's looking nice. And that's going to do its thing. One thing I have left off actually is the little counter on the progress bar. So I'm going to copy and paste this and just pop it on top. Just align it center. And then let's do a 1 of 2. There we go. So we've made that much progress, which isn't too bad. Halfway there. Then we've got our task item thumbnail. Okay, and we've got our task item reward. Cool. So everything's where it should be. This needs to be sorted. So I'm just gonna, this will be claimed overlay. I'm gonna group these. And then with everything in place, I'm going to group it all. Let me just see. Did that not work? Claimed overlay. Cool, that's looking fine. Create a component out of this. So this is where the fun begins, really. So with components, you can do all sorts of stuff, and we've got all of these options that allow us to create like different variants and stuff like that we can sort of like toggle between. which is really useful for when like you're prototyping UI within Figma and you want to have one item that has various states to it. So let's see what we can do with that. So I'll call this task item, and then that's going to become task item. The truth really. Here's our component task item that we just created. So if you ever lost it on your canvas, you can, sort of go to main component, and there it is. What I'll do, I'll drag the main component out of the canvas itself, or the frame, and I'm going to drag an instance of it, and you can sort of see like the difference here. So one has like, multiple diamonds. This has a single diamond, which shows it's an instance of it. We can add a variant to it. So we're just going to, with our item selected, we're going to add variant there, and you can sort of see that it creates a new instance of it here. So we've got a default view, which is the one at the top, and then we've got the one below it. So double click and we can change it here, or we can change the property over here as well. So I'm thinking this one's going to be called the claimable state. Okay, this one's going to be called, I'll change it over here just to show you. So this is our default state. And you can sort of see we've got the two different states there. We actually need a third state, don't we? Which is that will be the claimed state. So that's the one with, obviously, as we can see, the banner over the top. So I'm going to do claimed state. So we've got 3 states, which is sort of what we need. We just need to, on each of these components we've created the variants for, we just need to turn the objects on and off. So we'll start with the default state, and that's going to be turning off the claimable label. We don't want that, so we'll just locate that in the list, and then we're going to turn it off there. And then we need to turn off the task item container. No, not the container, the claimed overlay. Right, so this is our default state, and we want to keep it that way for now. And then we're going to go into our claimable state. We'll remove the claimed overlay because we don't want that at the moment, and that's perfect for now. Or is it? Actually, it's not, because it wouldn't be claimable if we hadn't completed the task. So let's go and change that. There's so much you can do with the text within Figma. Like you can create like dynamically update this text when you've got your instance on the table here. And we'll probably look at doing that at some point actually. But for now, we're going to roll with this. And yeah, that's definitely a video which is more in depth. If you want to see that, let me know in the comments actually. Okay, cool. So claimable's done, and the claimed state. So we don't want the claimable label anymore. We've already claimed it, and that's it. So we've got our humble task item that's become this sort of task item on steroids. And yeah, now jumping back over to here, if you remember, we added our instance of that to the list. Here we can select which state we want it to be in. Okay, so we're just going to duplicate this a couple of times, and then I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to like group them together. And I just want to do this just so we can get them in like a nice list really. And we just need to make sure we've enabled auto layout, which is that one there. So that was this little icon here, and then we can adjust the spacing between them. Okay, cool. That's looking fine. Let's go ahead and add another one. And because it's in a auto layout, the more we add, it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. So here we're faced with that that issue that I raised in the wireframing process of like what happens when the item goes over the button. So we need to sort of think about that. I'm going to move those items below. I'm going to button base, change that to button base, and that will be the close button. Okay, cool. Okay, sweet. That's pretty much how I want it. So we're just going to hop over to the prototype tab. I'm going to add a flow starting point, which is this one here. So daily tasks. And scroll behavior, let's scroll it vertically. And when I press this button, I'm going to be able to scroll. A few things, like the close button scrolls with us. We don't necessarily want that. So what we can do is we could add scroll behavior, which is like fixed. So that stays in place now. So if we hit play again, there we go. That's behaving exactly how we want it, really, which is cool. Okay, so the basics of transferring a sketch to Figma wireframe, and next we're going to do the art pass, and I think that's when things start to get a little bit more visually interesting for us, and we might slow the pace down ever so slightly, just so we can sort of get things looking how we want.